I'm Ren Calloway. I'm 34 years old. I run a small brand design studio out of Asheville, North Carolina. And 3 days ago, I woke up at 6 inches the morning to 31 missed calls from an area code I had not seen in over 2 decades. My coffee was already brewing. The dog was at my feet. The morning looked completely ordinary. And then I picked up my phone. And something inside my chest went very, very still. You know how certain numbers carry weight even before you answer them? Like your body recognizes something your brain is still catching up to? I stood in my kitchen in my socks for so long that the coffee finished brewing, cooled down, and my dog Biscuit started nudging my knee before I moved again. I already knew who it was before I listened to a single voicemail. I grew up in Cloverfield, Indiana. Population just under 9,000. The kind of place where everybody knows which family owns which house and whose business was doing well enough to justify a new truck in the driveway. My parents owned a regional furniture and home decor business, 3 locations across 2 counties. From the outside, we looked like exactly what a prosperous Midwestern family was supposed to look like. Inside our house, it was a different story. My mother ran the family like a military campaign, with strategy, hierarchy, and absolute intolerance for anything she decided was weakness. My father followed her lead in everything. He was not a cruel man on his own, but he was a passive one. And in our household, passivity and cruelty produced the same result. Love was never simply given. It was withheld as a default and occasionally offered as a reward when you performed well enough. My mother had a word for everything she put me through. She called it preparation. When I was 9, she left me at a Walmart on the edge of town because I had taken too long choosing between 2 pairs of school shoes. I sat on a bench near the entrance for nearly 3 hours before their car came back. My father crouched down with genuine amusement and said, "I bet your mother $10 you would cry. Looks like she wins." When I was 11, I was cut from the school play after forgetting 2 lines at auditions. My mother drove me to the school parking lot that evening, handed me a flashlight, and told me to walk home, just over a mile, alone, in the dark. She did not come back. My father thought that one was funny enough to retell at dinner the next night. I drew constantly through all of it. Margins of notebooks, backs of permission slips, any scrap I could find. I drew doors that led somewhere else, girls standing at the edge of cliffs, with the whole open sky in front of them and nothing behind. Art was the only place I belonged entirely to myself. The incident that broke everything open happened when I was 13. I had received a B in language arts after an essay I worked on for 2 weeks. My mother held that paper like legal evidence of failure. That night I heard them talking in the living room. Voices low and amused in the way that always made my stomach tighten. The next morning they made eggs and filled up the gas tank and told me we were heading into Indianapolis for the day. I wanted so badly for it to be real that I let myself believe it. We parked near the downtown transit center on a busy Saturday morning. My mother pointed to a pillar near the main information board and told me to wait while they grabbed coffee and moved the car. 15 minutes, maybe 20. 15 minutes became 30. 30 became an hour. I had $12 in my jacket pocket. No phone, no address memorized. I stood at that pillar while the panic built so slowly it felt almost like patience. I did not ask anyone for help. They had spent years training me not to. Asking was weakness. Weakness attracted judgment. I was more afraid of being humiliated by a stranger than I was of being alone. And that one fact tells you everything about what my childhood had built inside me. I had been there nearly 2 hours when I saw the car moving slowly along the pickup lane outside the glass doors. My whole body flooded with relief. So overwhelming I actually laughed. I ran toward the exit waving both arms. My mother was in the passenger seat. My father was driving. Both of them were looking directly at me. My mother rolled down her window, leaned out, and smiled. She said, loud enough to carry over the traffic, $40 says you can't find your way back to Cloverfield on your own, baby. My father gave me a small wave, the kind you give a neighbor passing on the street. Then he pulled back into traffic and the car disappeared. I stood on that sidewalk and did not move for a very long time. A transit center employee named Gloria found me. She was maybe 60, with close-cropped silver hair and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. She had seen me circling the same area 3 times and decided to say something. She asked if I was okay. I said yes. She asked if I had eaten today, and I do not know why that particular question was the one that destroyed me, but it was. I told her everything right there next to a water fountain and a row of orange plastic seats. Gloria did not flinch. She put one hand gently on my shoulder and said, "You are safe right now, and I am not leaving you alone." Then she walked me to the security office herself and stayed until an officer arrived. The transit police reviewed camera footage. Confirmed the slow pass. Confirmed the window had been rolled down. Confirmed a child had been left standing on the sidewalk. When they reached my parents by phone, I watched the officer's face shift from careful neutrality to something harder. I heard him say, "Sir, leaving a 13-year-old in a downtown transit center while you return to another county is not a teaching moment. It meets the threshold for abandonment." A social worker named Denise sat with me while reports were filed. She asked careful questions and I answered all of them honestly, because I was tired of pretending. What came out of those questions was not just about that afternoon. It was about 9 years of that afternoon, stretched across a childhood. My parents hired a lawyer and showed up in pressed clothes with polished explanations. They did not deny leaving me at the transit center. They reframed it as intentional parenting. The court-appointed therapist report described a documented pattern of emotional abuse, deliberate endangerment, and habitual use of fear and humiliation as parental tools. I remember sitting in that hearing room and feeling those words land like clean, cold water on something that had been burning for years. The reunification plan was offered. My parents lasted 3 therapy sessions before my mother told the family therapist she did not need a stranger with a degree explaining motherhood to her. They surrendered parental rights on a Tuesday in March. I was 14. I sat in the hallway eating crackers from a vending machine. And I thought the strangest thing. I am not surprised. Their pride had always meant more to them than I did. The surrender just made it official. The family I had been placed with, Tom and Patricia Holloway, asked if I wanted to stay. I said yes before they finished the sentence. Tom set aside a corner of the garage as a studio for me without being asked. A work table, a lamp, a corkboard. Patricia knocked on my bedroom door before opening it. That one small thing made me cry into my pillow for 20 minutes after she left. I changed my name when the adoption was finalized. The name I had before belonged to a girl standing alone on a downtown sidewalk with $12 and no one coming back. Wren belonged to someone else entirely. Recovery stretched across years. I flinched every time Patricia said she would be back in a few minutes. I had panic attacks in waiting rooms and bus stations. Anywhere I was told to stay put. My body had been trained to understand waiting as a precursor to abandonment, and untraining it took longer than I wanted. But Tom and Patricia never confirmed my worst fears. They always came back. They always knocked. They always kept their word. I went to art school in Atlanta, built a career doing brand identity work, and met my husband Daniel at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. The night I told him everything, he was quiet for a long moment, and then said, "I don't understand how people can do that to a child. Not I'm sorry," which would have felt like pity. Just honest bewilderment that cruelty like that had a face and a name and had lived in a house with me. We married in a small outdoor ceremony. Tom walked me down the aisle. Patricia wept, then laughed at herself for weeping. I had blocked my biological parents on every platform years earlier. Built a wall thorough enough that most years I could go months without thinking about Cloverfield at all. Then 31 missed calls. The voicemail was from my younger sister Lily. She sounded exhausted in a way that went past tiredness into something structural. Our mother had stage 3 pancreatic cancer. Our father had suffered a cardiac event in the fall. The furniture stores were gone, all 3 locations, after a former employee posted publicly about what my parents were like behind closed doors, and the old court records surfaced in a local news thread, and Cloverfield quietly decided they were no longer worth protecting. Then Lily said the part I had been waiting for. They wanted me to come. Not because they had changed. Because they were sick and scared and had finally run out of other options. Lily told me she had found the court records herself the previous year and read every page. She had cut contact 2 months after. She looked at her own 2-year-old son that morning and understood immediately she would never allow those 2 people near him. She said, "I'm not asking you to forgive them, Wren. I just refuse to be the person who keeps you from having the choice." I flew into Indianapolis 4 days later and drove a rental car the rest of the way. The hospital room was small. My father looked like someone had let the air out of him. My mother still had that carefully composed expression, even now, with an IV in her arm and no performance left worth protecting. She said my old name when I walked in. I corrected her. Once. Calmly. "It's Wren." She began crying in that way she always had. The kind designed to redirect attention, to make the person watching feel responsible for her pain. I had spent years learning to manage my response to that particular tactic. I let her cry. I sat down. I waited. My father said they were sorry. He used that word the way you use a skeleton key, hoping it opens something without doing the work of understanding the lock. I told him I had not come for an apology. I had come to say something I had been carrying for 20 years and had decided I was done carrying. I told them what they did at that transit center was not preparation. It was not a lesson. It was not parenting of any kind. It was 2 adults using their child's fear as entertainment, placing a bet on her distress, and driving away while she stood on a sidewalk with $12 and no one in the world to call. My mother asked if I could forgive them before she died. I looked at her for a long moment. I said, Forgiveness was not something she was owed, because her timeline had gotten uncomfortable. Whatever peace I had made with my own past, I had made it for myself, not for people who only came looking when they had nowhere else to turn. Then I said the thing I had been building toward without knowing it since I was 13 years old. You made a $40 bet on whether I could find my way home. I did. You just weren't there when I arrived. I stood up. My father asked if this was really the end. I told him it had been the end for 21 years. They were simply the last ones to accept it. I walked out through the corridor, through the lobby, and into a parking lot where the late afternoon light was sitting low and golden over everything. My hands were shaking, not from grief, but from the release that comes when you finally put down something heavy you have been carrying so long you forgot it was not part of your body. On the flight home, I thought about that girl in the transit center. The one who had been taught that asking for help was weakness, and then left in a place where help was the only thing that could save her. She found her way, not because cruelty made her strong, but because one woman with silver hair decided she was worth stopping for. Abuse does not build character, it builds armor. And armor is not the same thing as strength. Strength is what grows afterward, slowly, in warm houses with knocked doors and people who always come back when they say they will. The family you are born into does not own your future. It only shapes your starting point. What you build from there belongs entirely to you. I did not leave that hospital feeling guilty. I left feeling finished. And finished, it turns out, is one of the most peaceful feelings in the world.